our self-images. So in a way, we're going to do all these together, except for the review. The review comes right now. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the purpose behind private school interviews. So can any of you remember what the actual purpose of these interviews are? Outside of that, so we're going a layer deeper, right? So obviously they want to know if you're a good fit for the school, if you're even worthy of being at the school, right? But what do they want to know about you specifically, right? So what needs to happen during this interview for you? Exactly, okay? And do they want to know about you and your school life? No, right? And can anyone tell me why no? Let's go with Kara. Kara, why do you think they don't want to know about your academics?
They want to learn more about you as like who you are outside of school.
Exactly. But why in particular? I saw William's hand up first. Exactly. Okay. And with that application, there's your report card. Okay. All they need to do is glance at all your A pluses and say, okay, they're a good student. Okay. You don't need to tell them that. In fact, do not tell them that. Don't say, I got an A plus in French. They know. They can see your report card. So the actual first interview is, or the first purpose of the interview is to get to know you outside of school. Okay? You know yourself outside of school. Okay. So they want to get to know you outside of school. And what does this mean? What are some things that they would like to know about you that you think they would like to know? Let's go with Luke.
Like your hobbies or personalities, what you're like. Yeah.
Yeah. So your personality, your hobbies, and probably your extracurriculars, even outside of, just playing video games or playing sports. Okay. You want to know, are you, do you volunteer at things? Do you like to help people? Are you involved in something bigger? Okay. I know a grade 8 student that's already part of a software development team. Okay. That kid has been learning code since he was like 4 years old. Right. So, fingers crossed, if everything goes well in his life, he's gonna, be in Forbes magazine, in 10 years or something. Right. So they want to get to know you outside of school. And we barely touched upon it last time, but we're going to go over it again, is you need to be able to connect things that you describe yourself as, along with experiences and anecdotes or stories, real stories, you can't make them up, about you. And they have to be very specific, right? If you say, oh, I'm very athletic, okay, why? I play sports. That's not a very, vivid picture that you're painting in the person's head. They probably heard that spiel, a million times, except they probably heard a more specific version. So that was number one. That's the first real purpose of the interview. Does anybody know the second real purpose of the interview? It all kind of ties together, but there are specifics involved.
Is it like how well you are with people and how like your charisma maybe?
Not quite, but charisma does go a long way in these. Yes, the actual second purpose of this all is to self-promote yourself. Okay, so you're promoting yourself. Some people would call it selling yourself. Okay, you are sort of selling yourself, right? If you think of all these amazing students, because that's who you guys are competing with, right? Just everybody who is kind of in the top of their age group, right? You're competing against them. You want to make sure your market value is as high as it can be. Okay, and through self-promotion, you have to be, I know I keep saying this word, you have to be specific, okay? You got to be very specific. Why? Being specific makes you unique. And being unique means you make an everlasting impression, okay? So this makes you unique, which leaves an impression, okay? If you don't leave an impression, the moment you leave that room, the person's already forgot about you, okay? That's not what you want to do. If you come in with vanilla answers, boring answers, and even boring follow-up questions to the interviewer, they're just going to leave. Okay. I mean, after you leave, you've left their thoughts. So that's not what you want to do. Right. But you also want to be strategic. Okay. So also be strategic. So can anyone explain to me what does being strategic in this interview process mean? So consistency and reinforcement. Okay. So anyone know what I mean by this? Yes, Coco. Exactly. Example would be if you say you never give up, right? You're very persevering, you're very persistent. And then one of the anecdotes you say maybe 5 minutes later in the interview is, oh, you know, the other day I was playing a sport and I got hurt, so I just gave up completely, right? There's an inconsistency there. And all you're going to do is be met with more, let's say, follow-up questions that kind of leave an awkward silence, okay? And we'll get into awkward silences later as well, right? And the next little bit is pretty simple, okay? I'll just tell you guys, it's being descriptive, okay? What does descriptive mean? It just means using adjectives, reinforce everything you're saying, okay? If you say, you know, you play sports and you're very good, you could say very good, but you could change that word to, you know, exceptional. Okay, you're an exceptional basketball player, let's say, right? And descriptive words, these are mainly to describe your hobbies and passions and who you are outside, right? Don't use it to describe your extracurriculars, or sorry, don't use it to describe your academics. If you use it to describe how well you do in math class, they can read the feedback from your teachers in your school, right? So descriptive wordplay will only take you so far with academics, right? So again, stay away from trying to talk about your academics as much as you can, right? All right, so Ryan and who just came, Ivan, were you guys able to take a look at the image I posted on Google Classroom? So the next part we need to talk about are the taboos, okay? So if you guys know what a taboo is, it just means things you shouldn't do. So things you should avoid, okay? So let's talk about the first taboo. Anyone have an idea of what taboo could be? Yes, William. Okay, well, we'll count that as like 0.5. Okay, that's something that's sort of just a given. Okay, so stay away from academic talk. Okay, now let's talk about actual taboo that just goes a really long way. It's Sean. Okay, so let's do 0.75. We're almost getting there. Okay, so formal, right? This is a formal interview. Make no mistake. You be casual. You talk to him like your buddy. You're gonna leave a bad impression. Yes, Sean. So the first taboo is to avoid yes or no answers / vague answers, okay? So even if you answer in a full sentence, your sentence might be very vague. So let's take that athlete example, right? Please raise your hand and I'll let you know when to speak. Yes. So let's go back to the athletic example, okay? You say, I'm a very athletic person. Oh, how so? Because I play sports. That's a very vague answer, okay? And here is, you can actually get something what we call the awkward silence, okay? You guys might have had this before in the past, talking to anybody, right? But specifically in formal settings, you'll have very, very long and awkward silences, long sullen silences that you can't really, let's just say once you've done it, right? Once you've answered with a vague question, once you've answered a question vaguely, you can't go back, right? There's now a silence between you and the interviewer. It's going to be because I play sports, and the interviewer is just going to look at you like, okay, like any sports, right? What sports in particular? And then what this also leads to immense number of follow-up questions. Okay, so you want to avoid this part, okay? Because this is something that you probably didn't prepare for. Okay, you probably prepared for your questions to just kind of, you know, hit it right on the mark, right? You didn't want them to just completely ask you 20 extra questions that you had no idea you were supposed to answer, right? So yes or no answers, vague answers, stay completely away from them, all right? Can anybody give me an example of a vague answer? Yeah, right, that would be an example. They could ask you what your favorite subject in school is. You would say, I like math, or even worse, you just say math with a period, right? And what that invites is just, number one, the awkward silence, and then some follow-up questions that they didn't even want to ask, okay? Remember, they're doing a job too. They don't want this to take longer than it needs to, okay? So this is probably the most important taboo, I would say, right? And the next taboo, two. Ryan, what do you think the next taboo would be? Something you should never do at the interview. We can add this to 0.75, formal, dress formal, okay? But we're talking about when you're actually speaking to them, when they're speaking to you, when you guys are, you know, having a dialogue. Don't stutter for sure. All right, that's something we can work on together. Sorry? Ooh, that's gonna be hard, right? Some people just have much stronger spit glands than other people. Yeah. That's what Brian just said, right? Don't stutter. Okay. So these are all good. Yes, Alicia. Definitely don't do that. Okay. We can make this like 0.9. Okay. Don't ask them personal questions.
Don't lie about your traits.
Exactly. Okay. Do not lie. I know it's crazy, it's blowing your mind right now, but do not lie. Don't lie about who you aren't. Don't lie about who you are. And don't lie about your personal experiences, okay? And the way you make your experiences and stories more believable is to be very specific. I know I keep saying the word specific, but being specific, telling them exactly the experience, exactly what year it happened, what month it happened, what you were experiencing, what led to it, how it happened, where it happened, who was involved. That makes the story more believable, right? Okay, so do not lie about your experiences or the traits you describe yourself as. Okay, this is a given, but believe it or not, when you're caught on the spot, students tend to slip up and they'll make up some stories. Okay, and because they're an adult, they've experienced more life than all of you. They've heard lies over and over and over again. And don't forget, this is their job. This is all they do is they interview children, right? They can smell lies from a mile away. So third taboo, okay? Third taboo, something we talked about last class. Anybody? Don't just take random guesses, right? Think about your response. Let's ask Kara, what do you think the third taboo is?
Like don't fidget while you're.
Oh, well, that sort of goes into just like the etiquette, okay? So I'm essentially telling you guys to go into this interview as the most polite and prim and proper students you can be. I see Luke's hand. Yeah.
Is it don't be repetitive, maybe?
Oh, that's the opposite of taboo. Be repetitive. You want to be consistent and reinforce what you've already said about yourself. Okay? Yes. All right. Well, the third taboo, I'll give it to you guys, is avoid sounding pre-scripted or robotic. Okay? But what you can do is prepare beforehand the gist of what you're going to say. Okay? You can even write a few drafts of an ideal version of what you said or what you're going to say. But don't make it sound like you're reading off of the script, okay? Because they can see you, right? They're gonna see you looking up at the sky, trying to you have like a photographic memory and you're taking in, you're looking at the image that you took with your eyes and you're reading it off your paper, okay? They can see that. It has to be, first of all, eye contact. Remember the middle of, people's noses, okay? The bridge right here. You look there and you talk to them, okay? And everything needs to be a genuine, authentic response and everything needs to line up with what you've already said. Otherwise, you're in for a lot of weird, awkward silences and follow-up questions that you easily could have avoided, right? And the other thing is you want to make every word count, okay? That's why stuttering is bad, because what does stuttering do? It increases your word count unintentionally. By the time, if let's say somebody does stutter a lot, okay? So if in total, the interview, if you script it, if you transposed it to writing, then it was around 3,000 words. And then you said 100 times, it's now 3,100 words. Okay, so unnecessary.